Welcome, everybody, to All-Star Insights. I'm your co-host, Chris McKnight, along with my co-host,
Coach Rock. Good to see you guys today, and welcome to the show.
And today's episode is sponsored by Kids on First Foundation and Tuckahoe Sports. And today we have a very special guest all the way out from the Midwest, Mr. Shane Schellsmidt. How you doing, Shane?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. It's sunny out today, but man, you can tell that we're in November now. Oh my goodness, but it's beautiful. I appreciate you guys having me on today.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, man. I can't wait to dive into some of the stuff. Shane and I have known each other at least 15 years now. We did some work together with the Philadelphia Phillies Midwest Scout team, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Shane, why don't you just give us a background from when you started your career in baseball and kind of catch us up to where you are today?
Fair enough. I'm a small town Northeast Iowa kid. We came from one of the winningest programs in the state of Iowa. It was very successful, and I enjoyed that moment, that time. But moving from there, where you didn't have a lot of competition, to the college level, and it was a new experience for me. I was fortunate enough to play for Bill Krejci at Southwestern Community College. Coach Krejci has spent a little time with USA Baseball. A wonderful, wonderful man. 2 years that opened my eyes at the junior college level. The level of competition was fantastic when you're talking about, the Indian Hills, the Iowa Westerns of the world. After that, I realized that baseball at the next level was not going to be easy for me. I had a chance to play at a Division III school at the University of Dubuque. I loved my time. It was a chance to slow down and love baseball again. It was a wonderful experience. I appreciated every moment I was there. And after that, I was fortunate enough to jump into college coaching as soon as my experience ended at the University of Dubuque. They gave me an opportunity to be a college head coach just 2 years out of playing. I did that for 9 years. And after that experience ended, Chris was kind enough to let me tag along on some weekends all over the Midwest, playing some amazing competition with the Philadelphia Phillies Midwest Scout team. And we were fortunate. We had a lot of fantastic ball players that found homes at the Division I level. And, John Rave just stepping on the field at Wrigley last summer, hitting a home run was pretty cool to watch. So seeing a guy that was stealing home in Chicago, doing some fantastic things in the fall, to watching him hit a home run at Wrigley Field. Oh my goodness, what a happy moment sitting there on my couch watching that happen. So, but no, I did that for a few years and had an opportunity. Jerry Raditz let me tag along a little bit with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I just love the conversations we had. You have this longtime scout wearing this World Series ring from Cincinnati on his finger, and every nugget I could pick up, I wanted to hold on to. Been like kicking tires a little bit, doing some things like that, trying to find opportunities to tag along and put some tools in my toolbox, which kind of led me to some private lessons and some things of that nature as well. So, but yeah, it's been a fun ride. It's been interesting, and I love just kind of tagging along and seeing what can I soak up from a lot of these wonderful individuals.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned John Rave. I was texting with him last year, and I still tell the story to my younger guys about when he first came out and we were having practice in Madison, and the dude was bunting. He was I forget what he ran, maybe a 6'6" or a 6'5", whatever it was. The dude bunted that year with the scout team. He was 15 for 16, I think. Whether it was a sack bunt or a bunt for a base hit, it really didn't matter because the kid was that fast and he was such a good bunter. And I remember saying to myself, man, this kid, he's got tools. I mean, he could also hit.
Right.
He played mean center field, but you could just tell he was going to be. And I think 3 of those guys on that team wound up, getting drafted. And like you said, a lot of those guys, you could just tell the way they carried themselves and the walk and everything. It was a really fun group of kids to be around.
I tell you, watching John and, coaching first base in those teams, all you had to do was get on base. And, looking from the outside in, I don't think he was worried about what people thought. Some guys don't want to lay a bunt down. It's a shot to their ego. all he did is he got on base, he took second, took third in 2 pitches, and set the team up to have success. And there were a couple games he got to third base and stole home. It was just like boom, 1, 2, 3, done. And I just love the fact that he was self-aware on what his tools were. And this is my opinion. He didn't worry about what other people were doing, what they were thinking. He just got on base and wanted to showcase the skills that God gave him, and he took second, took third, and he was home. And it's like, who wouldn't want a starter like that on their college program? And I'm just happy for him, and he's just continually evolving. And what a wonderful poster child.
Yeah, and the bottom line too, he's a great kid. You know, he was always just very focused, very polite, do anything for the team. You know, that's what I told my wife when I saw that. I said, you know, there's good players. Everybody's coached good players. But, you know, this good combination, being a great person and a great player, that's hard to find. So
I agree, right? There's a reason why someone took a chance on him, no doubt.
Hey, real quick, Shane, what do you think about the mental aspect of the game and where it's evolved and where it's come from to yesterday into now as far as the approach?
I think that's such a slippery slope because, you know, look, years ago, if you open that door, I think years ago, it was like, they just crossed you off the list immediately. Like, nope, there's a weakness or a flaw, and we'd rather go on to somebody else. Because if you look, talent is everywhere, coast to coast. There's talent everywhere. You're pulling worldwide. And I think if you open up that door years ago, you immediately got crossed off the list. And let's go on to the next player. And now in the school setting across the country, I think we're a little more open to the mental health side of things, at a social emotional learning aspect. And I think it's people are willing to have a conversation. Years ago, I think you were done. If you let people in, and the knowledge just probably wasn't as prevalent. And I think now people are willing to give you a chance. But who wouldn't want to work on that side of the game, right? Because if Chris was going out to watch somebody play, he was there because he knew they had skills, right? He knew they had tools. Now the test is, I want to go there and see how they handle their routine. I want to see how they handled in and out. I want to see how they handled stress. He wasn't going because he knew they could play, but he wanted to see if they could handle adversity for the next level. And I feel that why wouldn't we be equipping our athletes and our future parents in that side of the game? So I think we've come a long way, but I think we have a big journey still set in front of us.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's funny that I think what you just said, you know, when we go out and watch players to recruit, you could see the skill set. The hard part was trying to figure out if that person was going to be a fit, you know, with the personality and the mental aspects. And I sometimes would, after my third or fourth time watching a kid, I would sometimes hope, if I was watching a pitcher, that he'd have a blow-up inning, or the dude would strike out twice, because I wanted to see how he was going to react, you know. And a lot of times the better players didn't have that, but I was looking for that. You know, I wanted to see what his reaction was on the field, but then also when he walked back to the dugout, was he sitting by himself at the end of the bench, or was he back up on the fence, or, you know, in the dugout up on the railing cheering on his teammates, even though he had a bad inning or, you know, a bad at bat. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think the game is definitely starting to recognize that, but it's still a lot of work, you know.
Well, I think it comes down to letting that whole inner circle understand what the plan, what the big picture is. I remember one of my last years coaching in college, you know, I drive into Schaumburg to watch a kid that I really wanted to bring to campus, and he was 0 for 3, 0 for 4 at the plate, competitive at bats, but 0 for 3, 0 for 4. But on defense at shortstop, he was lights out. He was fantastic, right? And after the game, somebody came up with their shoulders were down, their heads were down, and they're like, "Oh, you drove all this way. It was cold out, and he didn't get a hit today." And I'm like, seriously? I was so fired up and so happy that your son struggled at the plate. I was honest. I'm like, your son struggled at the plate against an average pitcher. But when he went up to shortstop every inning, he was one of the first guys on the field, first guys off the field, and he was lights out. So he did not take any of his at-bats to the field. And I was so happy. Like you said, I was happy he struggled at the plate, but he did not show it on defense. And there was a reason why this kid was just recently inducted into the university's Hall of Fame, Athletic Hall of Fame, because he's got it figured out. He had to figure it out between the years, right? But the thing is, everybody thought he was a failure that day because he didn't get a hit, right? No, he was able to transcend his moments in the box and lock it in on the defensive side and help his team get a victory. But that's right there. Everyone's worried about what's taking place in the batter's box. What's in the batter's box? No, it's the whole pie, the whole aspect. But we're so hung up on exit velo, so hung up on batting average, power numbers. If you want to win, you better play both sides of the ball. And I feel bad because how many times do you think parents have those conversations in the ride home? They're driving back from Indianapolis to the Midwest, and your kid maybe didn't have a lot of hits that weekend, but he was lights out in defense. But nobody wants to pat their child on the back because he didn't have a career highlight reel in the batter's box. So I think that conversation is just starting to chip away, and we just have to do a little bit more to educate the people in their inner circle. So,
and it's funny that you say that because when people always look at, the first thing they ask, what'd you do today hitting? Nobody says, hey, how many balls did you field and throw out? Throw guys out at first base. People look at batting average, and really that's like one of the worst things. Batting average kills careers because they don't look at how many quality at bats that kid had that day. Did he sack fly? Did he move a runner over? Did he, sack bunt? The quality at bat chart to me is a better measure of success for hitters than batting average really is. And like you said, unfortunately, people are hung up on that. How many hits did I get and what my exit velo was. But, especially at the young levels too.
I had
go for it.
Team this past weekend, Shane, Chris, that constantly asked me, what's my batting average? I told him, like, listen, I don't give averages or numbers to any of my players until the end of the season. Right. We don't even discuss it. To me, it's almost like, I may be a little bit superstitious on that, but I truly feel that a kid not knowing, a player not knowing is gonna have him focus on what he's supposed to be doing versus putting the pressure on himself because now he knows what he's hitting, his batting average.
Yeah, we had years ago playing travel baseball at a younger age, I had a parent come up to me, hey, let's do Game Changer and get stats. I said, that won't come across this, it won't enter the dugout. I don't want any help with this. I don't want you putting stats out. I don't want families seeing data. I just want them to show up and have fun and compete today, learn how to be a competitor. And the last thing I need is the dugout talking, was that a hit? Was that an error? Was that a hit? So if the parent did, he never told me ever again after that conversation. But I'm sorry, when you're 9, 10, I don't want to talk about batting average. That is not going to enter in my dugout. Now, they might have talked about it on the ride home or sitting in, if they had a group supper somewhere, but it was not going to come into the dugout, ever going to come in the dugout.
Yeah. So let's go back to what you said earlier, which I think is really important to hammer home here, is when the parent and the kid get back in the car and after the weekend, the first instinct of a mom or a dad is probably to sit down and review the game. After the coach already reviewed the game with the players on the field, but the first instinct. So what's your advice to that parent when they get in the car with that youth player?
I think we have to talk about what success is. And if I had to go back and turn back the hands of time in my first team meeting, that's probably where I would start is, hey, this is the level of competition we're going to compete at. This is what our goals are. My goal is there's not going to be one goal that centers around your child's batting average. I want your child to learn how to compete. I want them to learn how to push through adversity. And when you get in that car and that ride home, if I have to, I'll script 3 to 5 questions for you to build a conversation with your child. That's one thing I dropped the ball on. We never talked about it. And I feel that you don't know what you don't know. But if I had to do it over again, here's the script I want you to start working with your child on, because when we talk in the dugout, this is what we talk about. So let's get everybody in the same direction, get all of our ships sailing in the same direction, so your child doesn't have a full ride home from Indianapolis thinking that they're a failure. And that's how I would do it. And if anything, we're doing it for the kids and we're doing it for the families. So I just think everybody has to have that common language. So if I had to jump in front of a family today at a very impressionable level, age, where their brains are still developing and they don't know what failure is, because the failure is, well, I'm not doing what they do on MLB Tonight, right? So I guess getting everybody on the same page is one of the first things I would talk about, just so everyone's job is a little bit easier. But what is failure? What is success? So that poor kid can shut down and find some joy in that tough ride home. Because you know what? Honestly, guys, I'm a special ed teacher as well. I deal with students in the past, alternative school, self-contained, court-ordered kids. I tell you what, after a couple minutes, they're not listening to me anymore. They'll hear the first 30 seconds, but after that, they've tuned me out. So can we make that first part, that initial part of our conversation meaningful? Because after a while, they don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I was going to say, so what are your thoughts about self-evaluation? Are they able to, giving the player the ability to self-evaluate, and then we go into our conversation and say, you know what do you grade yourself today?
Man, that's a tough question right there. That is a tough question. I think it probably comes down to the age of the student.
Okay.
Right. I think at the lower level, hey, I stole something from Chris years ago, and it talked about how quick they get on and off the field, like a 10-second, 6-second rule on and off the field. How quick can we move? So it's just like, can we give them at a younger level some things that they can truly track? Am I hustling on and off the field every day? Am I, if someone got a bunt down, am I giving you a little high five? At the younger levels, are there things that we can put on the whiteboard that they can truly understand? And as they grow through the ranks, yeah, let's make it tougher. Let's make it tougher. And then when they're probably 13, 14, 15 hey, how many barrels did I catch today? How many swings did I swing at that were hittable? Did I chase an 0-0 breaking ball? I guess as we go, just like at school, right? If I was in math every year, it's going to build off the previous year. Then hopefully, hey, when you're 14, are you still picking guys up? Are you still hustling off the field? Or did your brain flip to you're all data now, all stats now? Can we put in our backpack the same thing we learned at a young age and still maintain that plus the new information? So I'm sorry to answer your question. I think it's just based on what level we're at, and then just keep building. Like in Spanish 4, you're not learning the same thing. Spanish 1 is not the same as Spanish 4 in high school, right? So let's just put what our expectations are. This is what I want your child to think about. And maybe as a coach after the game, hey, what were you trying to do today? What are 2 things that you were in control of today, and did you do that? And, first day in the college campus, if I had 65 guys, I was trying to have 65 different conversations. I'm not trying to have a carbon copy with every single player. And if I have 11 guys on my travel team, I should have like 11 different conversations. So I think it just gets down to what's the family, what's the child like, and what type of level can I truly jump into the weeds with? And I know I kind of skated around that question, but I think it's just like I got to get to know who they are to see what they think success truly looks like, and then build off that.
Yeah, no, and you ask players all the time. I know in college and even now at the youth level, one of the first things I ask guys is, how much of the game do you think is mental? And I get answers anywhere from 50 to 90, right? So even if the kid says it's 50%, my next question is, okay, well, what do you do? What 50% are you doing on your mental game? And they look at me like I have 2 heads, and they can't answer.
I don't think they know.
Yeah. They know.
I think they're all smart enough. Everybody is smart enough to understand, Chris, I think what you're talking about. But they don't have the skills in the background to truly open up that toolbox. It's like, to me, if I walked into any type of, if I went in and to get my oil changed, I know I got to get my oil changed. But all the equipment in there, I don't know. But I know something's there. I know what has to happen, but I don't have the know-how. I don't have the ability. I don't have the background. I never surrounded myself with the right people. And I'm just going to fake it. So I'm just going to sell my coach on that. I know what he's talking about, but I don't think people have had the conversations to truly jump in and make those corrections. A couple of years ago, one of my last years in college, I put all my teams on the line, and I said, I gave them random questions from the mental side. And these are kids that are probably parents now. These are kids that were upperclassmen, and they could not answer any of the most basic questions that you would want to take place between your ears. They knew it. They're all going to graduate. My graduation rate was fantastic, but they just haven't had the level of conversations to know what you were talking about. You know, it needs to be an automatic thought. It needs to happen immediately. Now, if you gave them, Chris, 30 minutes to come up with an answer, they'd probably create something that was wonderful. But if it's not automatic, you don't know enough to do in the moment. And I don't think they've had those conversations.
And and the cool thing is, like, even as coaches, I'll be honest with you. When I first started coaching, I was 25 years old, kind of like you, got a head coaching job. I thought I knew, baseball and everything. Meanwhile, I look back now and I'm saying, man, how did I even get through a practice?
Chris, I wouldn't have got hired today. I would not have hired that guy. If I was sitting in my 80s office, he'd be like, we're on to the next. It was all smoke and mirrors.
That's what I tell people. I said, I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I thought I knew, and I'm not saying it was a train wreck, but looking back now, what I know now to then, and one of the smartest things I ever did, and I still to this day, I'll tell anybody, when I was at Frostburg State, we had good teams, but my best teams ever is when I hired a sports psychologist. And we went from being a very good, team in our conference to get into the NCAA regionals and, having success there and having kids get on, ABC All-American and Gold Glove. And it wasn't because coaches always like to think you have a little bit. So, maybe you take a small percentage of that, but I know a big percentage. I was smart enough, so I'll take the credit for that. I was smart enough to hire somebody, and she worked with our student athletes, and I didn't really have much to do with it because she said, you have to be separated from that so they can feel good to open up to me. Like a pitcher's not going to come to me and say, hey, coach, you know what? Every time I step on the mound, I'm really nervous. And in the back of my mind, I'm saying, you ain't stepping on the mound no more. Right?
Chris, I agree. I feel like going into that interview, I gave them everything what they needed, right? I told them what they wanted. I'm this young, passionate guy. Let's go. And I look back, and if hindsight is 50-50, right? If I could take what I know now and package that in that young, I was, like I said, 24, 25 years old. And I feel, man, I'd still be coaching in college right now if I had the skills that I have right now. I should have never hired that guy. I should hire the guy I know right now. And I visualize. I still visualize when you reflect and you think about your experience. There's so many kids that needed a different conversation. There's so many, these are young men, college, they're all professionals now. They're in the real world. They're all parents. They have kids. I was just texting after the Dodgers win, this kid I had from California. Man, a lot of these kids just needed a different conversation. And I didn't have the skills at that age to give them what they needed. I wish I could give them a hug right now and say, man, I wish I could go back and give you a little bit more. We probably added 10 more wins. We'd be in the regional tournament. We'd do this, we'd do that, just because their physical tools were there. They just needed a little bit more. And it's just like, it's always easy to reflect, but oh my goodness, I just wish that you had a chance to do it over again with what you know now. But I guess you don't, so you just move on and do the best you can with what you have.
Yeah, and that's why Coach Rock and I and the foundation and Tuckahoe Sports, that's one of the reasons why we really think this podcast is important. Not because we the notoriety or anything like that.
Extraordinaires.
We think it's important. So guys like you have the platform, not just to reach the people that you're working with in your business, but to reach a wider platform and talk about those probably tough things to talk about, with the parents and the kids, and really have them understand that, because that's what's going to make them successful. Like you said, I'm 100% agree with you. When I first started coaching, I'm like, man, I just thought it was about having great practice and winning, that's what we wanted to do. And, because I was a kid too, really, I didn't have a family. I didn't think about any of that stuff. I just thought, hey, my job is to put the best 9 guys on the field and to get W's, And now, looking back, as I got older and I had a family, then I started, really recognizing that it wasn't, and the more I put into each player, the better that person was going to be. But ultimately, what happened, they became better players as well.
Right. I have this story. We're playing one of the better teams in the league when I was coaching in college, and we're in the first base dugout, and one of my infielder was fantastic, glove wise, fantastic, and he's facing one of the best pitchers in the league, and I wish I could go back, and I think about this all the time, and he ends up striking out, and he took a fastball to start the at bat, and then this pitcher had a nasty breaking ball, and he set him down in 3 pitches, and I watched him go back to the dugout, and he gets in the dugout, and you could see he kind of slams his helmet down a little bit, and he comes out of the dugout, he's staring at me. And after the inning, I looked at him, I said, what's going on? And he's like, I knew what you were thinking. I knew what you were thinking over there. And after that first pitch, I didn't swing at that first pitch fastball. I knew what you were thinking. And me being this young coach, I didn't even know how to handle that. I just said, hey, flip the switch, get back out to the infield. And nowadays, oh my goodness, the level of conversations that would need to take place, because the fact that he was done after the first pitch in the at-bat.
Yeah.
It just hijacked the rest of his at-bat and probably hijacked the rest of his day. And like I said, I was 26 years old, and now I'm almost 50, and the level of conversations would be completely different. Now I'd give the kid a big hug and say, hey, let it go. I'm here for you. We're not going to be perfect, and then we'll talk about it after the game. But he needed that. He needed that right there, and I see it all the time. If I'm watching a high school game or youth travel ball, or even lives in the cage, guys are getting frustrated and then no one's going up to talk to them. And I just think we have to have a better model, because these kids have so much to compare themselves to. Because you go on Instagram, how many guys are lighting it up on Instagram, right? And everybody sees that, and then they're comparing that right now. So of course we didn't have that at that point, but I should have done more, but you just didn't know.
Shane, real quick, I had a kid, for example, that based on that conversation that you're talking about, some of these kids, they got to smile, man. I told this kid, you looked way too serious in the face. Your body language is too rigid. You're putting too much pressure on yourself. You got to have fun with this game and smile. Put a smile on your face. It's too much worry. What are your thoughts about those type of conversations?
Oh my goodness, right? Perfect conversation piece, right? So my son's playing junior college ball last spring, and they got, they competed, but they didn't have a great record. And I was sitting there, and they got a chance to walk off somebody at home, and the guy coming up the bat with 2 outs, and the tying run at third, winning run at second, right? And I'm watching this, and it wasn't my son, it was somebody else, and he's coming from the on-deck circle. I'm like, uh-oh. You could already tell how heightened his body was, right? How much intensity, his heart's pumping, the adrenaline's going. He's walking faster to the box, and he's getting in the box, and he's moving quicker. And oh my goodness, right? You knew right away he's going to be aggressive on a fastball. So, Chris, let's visualize Chris is in the opposite dugout. Chris is like, nope, I'm going to use that strength, then I'm going to turn into a weakness. All he got was 3 sliders. Bam, bam, bam. But after the first miss, he was so pumped up. If he was turning the bat, you'd see metal shavings coming out. So what happens? They went softer again. And then 2 strikes, they didn't even come near the plate. It was like watching Alfonso Soriano swinging a ball that bounced the foot in front of home plate, and he was done. But yeah, they want that desire to succeed, and that desire to have a highlight reel, that desire to put that at bat on social media after the game with everybody dogpiling on at second base. He was already done. He changed his whole approach, his whole plan before he even left the dugout, and it already sabotaged and already hijacked who he truly could have been. If he would have slowed the game down and taken a Luis Gonzalez flare over the second baseman, being a right-handed hitter, if he just would have stayed in the box and just late swing, stay on the highway, he had a chance. But instead, let's get big time and let's just tear my jersey off and be super excited, just hijacked his at bat, and he never got the moment. Yeah. Now, they still walked it off, but it wasn't with him. But I felt so bad. I turned to my wife and I said, he just doesn't have a chance right here. So
no, and that, one of the things I think that as coaches, we probably see it, but we don't act on it, like you said, having that convo with a kid. I see it all the time, even with younger kids in lessons. They're so hyped and they're not breathing. Like I had a kid last week. He's almost holding his breath when he's slinging. I was like, dude, you need to relax your face. You
Right.
know, you need to breathe. You need to just. That's why guys chew gum a lot of times, and hitters, that they're keeping themselves relaxed. You know, they're opening their mouth. They're not holding their breath. But you know, like you said, those combos have to be had. So
I think
let's just jump a little. Like I know, you know, select hitting, and now you're really focusing in more on creating a comprehensive mental approach for your players. So just tell us a little bit about what you're doing with that and how that's going.
Well, I tell you what, when I first started in this, like teaching in the special ed world after my time was done in college, I got a behavior job, and the whole aspect is gaining trust with your students. If they don't trust that this teacher is there for them, it doesn't matter what setting you're in, they're not going to give you everything you want. And my first job, it was with court-ordered students that lost trust in the world, and everything I was doing. Now, granted, I jumped in. That's what I need to do. Need to be able to buy milk and pay my house payment. So let's jump into it. And everything I was doing, still in the back of my mind, everything it still ties into the hitting lessons that I'm giving in the evenings. The conversation I'm having with students that lack trust, it's the same conversation with the kids, you know, I'm giving hitting lessons to in the evening. You know, Eric Munson was kind enough to give me a shot, giving lessons in his facility, and the conversations weren't different. We just changed the focus. And over the years, you know, being a veteran teacher now, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm saying that. It's been forever, it feels like, but the conversations haven't changed. And I'm like, I can take the skills that we work on 180 days a year for hours and hours every day and apply that into the cage. And if you can see success in the classroom, why can't you have success in the cage? The only problem is time. So first off, we have to then jump in and immediately find out who they are, build some trust, try to instill like self-awareness. Once they start to trust you, and once they truly find out where they struggle, man, we can go from there. But there's such a need. There's such a need, and the whole trick is getting buy-in, though, right? You can know all the material, the knowledge is there, but they have to understand. Without knowledge, with knowledge without action, it's just entertainment. And we're trying to get them to understand that we have to just do a little bit more. So my whole game plan, you know, what I want to do when I retire, I want to be this old guy sitting in the cage doing what I should have done when I was a young guy, right? That's what I want to do. I don't want to leave the game of baseball, hitting, softball, what have you. I want to prepare these students a little bit more. Let's recognize, let's understand where those traps are at, and then how can we plan to make the day a little bit easier. But it will not happen unless they trust you and until they truly understand what they are lacking. And that's tough. It's tough for a parent to understand these are the struggles that my child has, but it just takes conversations and repeated conversations. And one of my first years as a special ed teacher, we sat at this behavior conference, and they said on an average, it takes 67 consecutive days to change a habit. 67 consecutive days, not every once in a while, but 67. Now, somebody else will have a different data point, but just for the sake of argument, 67 consecutive days to start thinking differently. Now, try to think how many hitters that you see on a regular basis every year. Well, I'll think about it every now and again. Well, we're going back to square one every time I do that. I got to find a way to reteach for on an average 67 days. Now that's just for them to start buying into the struggle. That's not truly understanding, planning, strategy, and then having an automatic thought when Chris's player walks into the box in order to get it done. Oh my goodness. We're talking years of teaching conversation, coaching conversations. So maybe by the time they're a junior, it just clicks and they get it done. But they first off have to understand that they have a dent in their armor, and then they have to be willing to hear this bald guy talk about it. We have to build this conversation to start changing their direction. And most kids will come in as seniors. Oh, I should have listened to you earlier. I'm like, I know, but you weren't there to do that at 13. You weren't there. But if we had everybody on the same page, maybe you'd be willing to listen to me.
Yeah. No, that's really good stuff, man. So if a player wants to reach out to you and likes the combo that we had today and wants to dive a little bit deeper, I know they don't have to live right in Iowa to get with you. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
If they just go on to either one of my online social media, handles or selecthitting.net and just start an email, drop a line and just say, hey, maybe this isn't for me, but it might be. It might not be for me now, but maybe, I've had a lot of parents reach out. I don't have many kids reach out. They don't want to admit that there's something there. But if anything, I just think just drop an email and just start a conversation. I think they just have to realize going in, this is not a quick fix. Oh my goodness. Just like the students I see in school, we're trying to prepare them as freshmen to be out the door with it figured out as a senior, or try to get it figured out as a senior. It takes 4 years, takes time. But I think parents have to realize that before they get into this, because it's going to be like a roller coaster. We want to stay off the roller coaster, but they just have to jump in and just chip away.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff, man. And, definitely I'm going to have you back with my team to talk about some of this stuff with them too, because they probably just get tired of me saying the same stuff. And then, I think it's really important, not just for the players, but I think it's really important.
Well, I just think it's just like, it's like so many parents that you bring on, you put them on your program, and it's not mom and dad don't have it figured out. They're self-aware and they realize they have to go to somebody else. Sometimes it's the same conversation, but just coming from somebody else. And I would love, Chris, on my own dime, I'll come down there. I'd love to get out of the cold upcoming winter of the Midwest to be down in the Southeast, right? So that would be fantastic. But I think people are self-aware and they understand. But I think sometimes it's just getting the conversation started is the toughest thing. And I feel for people because, I think sometimes feel like they let their child down. It's like, no, these are tough conversations. And at the end of the night, we want our kids to be happy and we want everyone to feel good. And if we have these conversations, sometimes it's tough. And I think sometimes it's nice to lean on somebody else, when my son, when one of my boys was going through things, I was leaning on a guy in Arizona to check his swing out, to look at his swing, because I'm dad. He doesn't want to hear me anymore. I'm dad.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. Hey, I really appreciate you jumping on.
Likewise. We appreciate all the insight.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah. No, it was good stuff, man. And we'll definitely hook up. We'll figure something out because I think it's good stuff for parents and players. But like you said, having those conversations are probably tough in the beginning, but definitely will pay dividends.
They're not probably, dude. They are, they're tough.
Yeah.
You're being way too nice. You're being way too nice. They are tough.
Appreciate it. And guys, remember, if you want to talk with Shane, I think it'd be a great investment of your time and also for your career. Reach out to Select Hitting. It's got a lot of good stuff on Instagram, post a lot of good stuff. I know I followed him for a long time. I steal stuff from him all the time as well. So it was great catching up with you today.
Well, Chris, hey, I appreciate the opportunity. A few years ago, I enjoyed that summer. I could sit at first base and have zero stress. You were you were running the team. You were running the team. I told my wife this is one of the best falls because I could coach first base and there's zero stress. So I appreciate that opportunity.
That's right. All right, Shane, appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. All-Star Insights, sponsored by Kids on First Foundation and Tuckahoe Sports. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you, Shane. We really appreciate you.